The Sheikh tested them in Arabic. Only the maid answered, and silence fell. It is a title that immediately carries a weight of mystery. Culture in Revelation, as though a single moment of silence can tell an entire story. The review of this tale does not simply come from the lens of narration, but from the way it forces you to question knowledge, humility, and the nature of true understanding. At the heart of this story lies a sheikh, a man of wisdom and authority, whose role is not just that of a figure of power, but also one who carries the responsibility of preserving identity, language, and the deep traditions of his people. Around him are gathered individuals of different stations, people who serve him, people who accompany him, people who believe they know the ways of respect. But it is in this gathering that the test is revealed. The sheikh, perhaps out of curiosity, or perhaps as a way to draw a hidden truth out into the open, decides to test those around him with something that seems deceptively simple, the Arabic tongue. This language, ancient and divine, the language of poetry, the Quran, and a long history of civilization, stands as a measure of both culture and belonging. He looks around and speaks in his tongue, sharp, clear, each word carrying not just its literal meaning but also its echo of history. The room listens, and in that instant, the test is not about wealth, not about appearance, not even about etiquette, but about knowledge, memory, and respect for roots. And yet, as the words travel through the air, there is hesitation. Those who should have spoken, those expected to carry wisdom, stand silent. The guests look at one another, their lips pressed, their eyes darting nervously. They are adorned in fine clothes, representing families, names, and prestige, yet when faced with the simplicity of words, they falter. The silence grows heavier, not just an absence of sound, but a weight pressing on the walls, pressing into the sheikh's heart. It is here that the story shows us something greater. That silence in such a moment is not just silence, but a confession, an admission of ignorance, a subtle betrayal of heritage. But then, in the midst of this silence, a voice rises. It is not the voice of a nobleman, not the voice of a guest or a servant of rank, but the voice of the maid. The maid, often overlooked, often invisible in the daily rituals of life, steps into the light by the strength of her knowledge. She answers in Arabic, and the words flow naturally, gracefully, as though the language itself has always been at home on her tongue. She does not stumble, she does not hesitate. Instead, she speaks with the clarity of someone who has carried this inheritance not as a burden, but as a treasure. And in that moment, silence falls again. But this time, it is a silence of awe, a silence of revelation, as though the room itself has been shaken. The brilliance of this story lies in the way it strips away illusions. The wealthy and the powerful, those with pride and status, fall mute when the true measure of knowledge appears. Meanwhile, the maid, a figure of humility, demonstrates that dignity is not tied to status but to wisdom, not to possessions, but to what one carries in the mind and heart. This is why the silence that follows her response is not the same as the silence before. The first silence was shame, emptiness, a void where speech should have been. The second silence is respect, recognition, the kind of quiet that comes when truth has spoken and no one dares to contradict it. Reviewing this tale, one cannot escape its deeper meanings. On the surface, it is a story about a test of language. But beneath that surface, it is a reflection on class, humility, and the idea that knowledge is the great equalizer. The sheikh does not need to punish or rebuke anyone. The simple fact that the maid answered while others did not is a lesson more powerful than any lecture. It shows that wisdom is not confined to palaces, that understanding does not bow before wealth, and that a person of humble standing may carry within them a greater light than those in elevated positions. The story also speaks to the importance of language itself. Arabic here is not just a tool of communication. It is portrayed as a living identity, something that binds the people to their culture, their religion, and their history. To fail in Arabic, in this context, is not just to fail in a test of words, but to lose connection with one's own roots. The Sheikh's choice of test is profound because it reveals where people stand in relation to their own heritage. For the maid, Arabic is alive, remembered, and honored. For the others, it has become distant, neglected, or forgotten, and in that gap lies the lesson. What makes the story even more powerful is the emotional turn it brings. At first, the reader or listener might expect the nobles or the educated to shine, while the maid would remain in the background, unheard. The reversal shocks us, forces us to reevaluate our assumptions, and brings forth the moral that humility and learning walk hand in hand. This makes the silence that follows not just silence, but a mirror, reflecting back at each person their own shortcomings. It is almost as if the sheikh himself did not need to say anything further. The silence carried the rebuke, and the maid's voice carried the triumph. From a narrative point of view, the beauty of the tale lies in its simplicity. It does not need elaborate twists, long dialogues, or complex plots. Instead, it relies on a single powerful moment, one test, one answer, and one silence to create a lasting impact. The review of such a story must acknowledge that this simplicity is its greatest strength. It allows the listener to focus not on what will happen next, but on what is happening right now, in the heart of that moment. When reflecting on this tale, one is reminded of countless other parables and stories where wisdom is found in unexpected places. Yet this story stands out because of its cultural weight. The Sheikh symbolizes authority, the language symbolizes heritage, and the Maid symbolizes the overlooked wisdom that society often ignores. The message is timeless. Do not underestimate the quiet ones. Do not assume that knowledge wears a crown. And do not forget that heritage belongs to all, not only to the privileged. The silence in the room is the story's most haunting element. A silence that follows knowledge is often more powerful than applause because it forces reflection. Those who remained silent when tested must have felt the sting of their own inadequacy, a realization that no wealth could shield them from. And, for the Maid, that silence must have been both a victory and a burden, a recognition that, though she spoke the truth, the weight of that truth set her apart. As a review, it is impossible not to admire the layers of this tale. It works on the human level, showing us humility and pride. It works on the cultural level, reminding us of the importance of language and heritage. It works on the moral level, teaching us that true wisdom is not bound by class. And it works on the narrative level, delivering its message with elegance and restraint. There's no need for a dramatic punishment, no need for lengthy speeches. The test itself is enough. In the end, the story stays with the listener not because of the Sheikh's authority or the Maid's status, but because of the profound truth it reveals about life. That moments of silence can carry greater meaning than words. That the simplest of answers can humble the greatest of men. And that sometimes the most powerful lesson comes not from the expected, but from the overlooked. The Maid's voice in Arabic becomes a symbol of authenticity, and the silence that follows becomes a symbol of awakening. This is why the title resonates so deeply. The Sheikh tested them in Arabic. Only the Maid answered, and silence fell. It is not merely a recounting of an event, but a timeless reflection on knowledge, humility, and the strength of heritage. The review of this story is not just praise for its craft, but an acknowledgement of the way it reaches into the human soul, challenging us to ask ourselves, when the test comes, when heritage calls, will we answer, or will silence fall on us too?